Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ask Huda. I'm your host, Jamil Rashid. Very happy to say we have Shaikh Muhammad Salah with us again. Assalamu alaikum, Shaikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, this is a very special edition. None of your telephone calls today, unfortunately. We've got all the questions from the internet, so please do not call us. We won't be able to entertain any of your calls today. Everything's coming from the internet. Our email address, just to remind you, is ask@huda.tv. Okay, Sheikh, if I can start with the first question, it's pertaining to Hajj. We get a question, can we postpone the stoning from the first day to the second and the third day?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala nabiyhi Mustafa Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. All praise due to Allah, who praise Him and we seek His help. Whomsoever Allah guides is the truly guided one, and whomsoever Allah leaves astray, no one can show him guidance. I bear witness that there is no God worthy of worship but Allah, and I bear witness that Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his last messenger. Throwing the stones is one of the rites of Hajj. Each act or rite or ritual of Hajj must be done in order and on the same appointed time as the Prophet ﷺ described. Since he said, peace be upon him, خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ, take your rites of Hajj from me, not from your mind, not from the occasions, but from the Prophet ﷺ. And he showed us in details as when and where to do everything. For instance, a person should not pass certain points without assuming the intention of ihram, or he would be violating one of the mandatory things, passing the miqat without making al-ihram. Similarly, that there is the standing in Arafah is on the 9th day, cannot be done on the 10th, nor on the 8th. So each and everything of ibadah was appointed to a certain time, must be done in certain times, except if there is a valid reason and the Prophet ﷺ approved that. For instance, the Eid day, Yawm al-Nahr, we throw only Jamratul Aqabatil Kubra with 7 pebbles. The Prophet ﷺ permitted the shepherds and those who are in charge for the issue and the process of slaughtering the hadi and so on to postpone the rami for 2 days because they have a valid reason. But it's not for every person to say that it's not convenient for me to throw today, so may I just summon all the throwing on one day. That's not valid.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, pertaining to throwing, we've got a second question here which says, while I was throwing, I didn't hit the wall, the jamarat. Now, the question is this stoning of mine accepted because I didn't hit the wall?
It's interesting that in the past people would focus on hitting the pole before the Saudi authorities built and remodeled the stones and made it like a huge wall. In the past it was just one pole, and people would fight to reach there so that they could target and aim at the pole. This is just a marker to show you where you should throw. The main thing and the most important thing is to make sure that your stone would fall in the basin. So even if it hits the pole, even if it hits the wall and it kicks back and goes outside the basin, that doesn't count. So that marker, that pole or that wall is not the target. Rather it is to throw the stone and to fall within the basin boundaries.
Jazakallah khair. Now,
so if it goes outside, that doesn't count, and you have to throw another one instead.
So this is something not new. I mean, mashallah, this is the sunnah, but this is totally different to what you hear nowadays. People, they're aiming for the wall, and they really don't understand. Is this another case of not really researching before you go to Hajj?
The problem is, if you examine the case even of casualties during throwing the stones, it is due to lack of understanding and due to ignorance, if I may say. If people educate themselves, if they read, if they learn about the rites of Hajj beforehand, it wouldn't be a problem. Because it will suffice you, especially for strong and physically fit people, to throw from far away, and it would fall definitely in the basin. But some people make a special effort. They have to go all the way to the borders of the basin, and they have to target the pole or target the wall nowadays. This is not required whatsoever. What's required is to be merciful with people around you, is to assist and help those who are weak and aren't capable. If you see somebody who would not be able to make it in, you can offer him or her to appoint you so that you can throw on their behalf. And it will suffice you to throw from far away. The basin is so wide. If you throw from anywhere, it will definitely fall there. But some people have in their mind that they are throwing the shaitan, and the shaitan has been fastened against the pole or wall. These are all misconceptions which should be corrected in the mind of those who are going to perform Hajj.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, I know one of the answers to your questions in previous episode was saying, if somebody drops a stone or something, you said it's good to take extra stones in the first place. Now somebody says, I've got some extra stones, I've got like 10. Instead of throwing 7, I throw all of the 10. Now, is this something allowed? Am I allowed to throw more than 7?
If it is allowed for any person to pray Maghrib 4 rak'ahs instead of 3 just because he thinks 1 rak'ah extra won't hurt, as a matter of fact will be good, then he can add to any ibadah. But this is not the case. We begin fasting whenever we see the crescent, and we end fasting, and it is mandatory to break our fast upon seeing the new crescent. If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says 7 rounds around the Kaaba, we make 7 if we're certain there are 7. Making an extra 1, knowing that it's an extra 1 is haram. From doing an act of worship to committing a violation and committing a haram. Similarly, the purpose of throwing is the compliance with Allah's command and following the traditions of Prophet Abraham, peace be upon him. So if Allah and His Prophet ﷺ taught us to throw 7 pebbles, then we should throw 7 pebbles, not 8. We may throw an extra 1 if I'm not sure there are 7 or 6. So at that case, I wouldn't take time to think. I would always consider the lesser, and I would throw extra 1, even if I happen to throw 8. But I threw the 8th one because of doubt. I'm not sure. I dropped 1. I threw 6 or 7. I would consider the lesser.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, now we've got a question regarding when does the timing start for stoning on the Ayam al-Tashriq? When's the actual time, the beginning and the end, basically?
We did tackle before the issue of the time for throwing Jamratul Aqabah al-Kubra on the day of sacrifice, which is the Eid day, or Yawm al-Nahr. And we said that it begins for the Nahr day or the Eid day, it depends on the people. For those who are allowed to leave for Muzdalifah past midnight, the weak, the elders, women, minors, and those who are accompanying them, they may throw as early as they reach to Mina, if that happens to be 1 or 2 a.m. And that is actually the main purpose why the Prophet ﷺ allowed them to leave earlier, before the rush. This is not the case with Ayyam al-Tashriq. The following days, the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th, which is optional. فَمَنْ تَعَجَّلَ فِي يَوْمَيْنِ, the 11th and the 12th, there is no sin upon him. وَمَنْ تَأَخَّرَ, and whoever stays the course 11th, 12th, and 13th of Dhul Hijjah, there is no blame on them as well. The Prophet ﷺ, as he was reported, that he was waiting and asking the companions, did the sun move from its meridian yet? No. So he would keep waiting until the sun moved away from its meridian, بعد الزوال, then he started throwing. So this is the actual beginning time, and this is the best. Then it is extended all the way until sunset, and if a person could not throw during this time because of the crowd, because of the rush, it's even extended all the way to the night. And our scholars nowadays say that even it's extended until dawn of the next morning.
Subhanallah.
So there is plenty of ease, and a person can definitely avoid the crowd. People rush to throw all at the same time, at the earlier time. But if you wait for an hour, for 2 hours, or an hour before sunset, it will be much, much lighter. If you use your best judgment, you go there and you think it's extremely difficult, you may return after an hour or before sunset. What if it is still very, very crowded and you have minors, you have your wife with you? Then I would advise you to wait until even after sunset. Because of the crowd, it's permissible to throw after that.
Jazakallah Shaykh. Okay, we've got a question regarding the order of stoning. Is there an order in the stoning of the Jamarat?
Exactly. So during Ayyam al-Tashriq, we throw the 3 stones. Jamratul Aqabah, Al-Sughra, Al-Wusta, Al-Kubra. The first one is the one which is nearer to or nearest to Mina. And the last one, which is Jamratul Aqabah Al-Kubra, which is the closest to Mecca. So you begin by the little one. And there are arrows and instructions in many languages that you would never get lost. And ask before you make anything unknowingly. And if you see videos, if you read in books, if you watch pictures, you can imagine and try to visualize the scene there. That would prepare you mentally to imagine how would it look like. Some people, they go earlier than others, and they go to those places, to Mina and to Arafat, and they check them out before the crowd, before the days of Mina, before the day of Arafah, before Ayyam al-Tashriq. They have some clue of what's going on there. Of course, when they go once again on the Eid day, Ayyam al-Nahr, and I've seen that personally, people say that this is not the same place I was here 2 days ago. Of course it's not, because of the crowd. It looks completely different. Imagine that those places are completely empty throughout the entire year, and only during those 4 days it becomes extremely crowded, the maximum.
Exactly. Okay, the next question carries on with the throwing now. So the question is, can we appoint somebody to throw? We know we can, but who are these people we can appoint? I mean, is there a category of person?
First of all, we have to know if am I eligible to appoint or not, because it's not open for any person to appoint.
Okay.
If I'm physically capable and I'm physically fit, why should I appoint somebody else to throw on my behalf? It won't suffice me. It will be permissible for those who are weak, elders, too young, too old. Some very obese people find it extremely difficult. Those who are weak or handicapped, and they think that, to their best assumption, if they try to do it, they will get hurt. We say, no, don't you hurt yourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given us an ease, and He doesn't want to hurt us. So you may appoint somebody who's a trustworthy person by saying that, would you please throw on my behalf? You may even collect the stones and give it to him. Why am I saying trustworthy person? Because you don't want to give it to any person. You would take it from here and throw it somewhere else. Okay? So he would throw on his behalf first, or on her behalf. Then throw on your behalf.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, now we've got a question here from about leaving out the throwing on Eid day due to a necessity. So the person says, I'm busy, or I need to catch a flight. He said, I've done the tawaf, ifad and the wada'. Can I pay somebody to do the throwing for me?
Once again, I really do like this kind of question. Why? Because it's coming from a person who basically came to perform Hajj to gain the title, to be called Haji, Haji Saab, or Mr. Hajj.
So just to start, that's the second question. Can you be called this? So you can answer this one.
Well, Hajj is one of the 5 pillars of the deen. So as-salatu is one of the 5 pillars of the deen. I don't understand why don't we call you Musalli Jameel or Sa'im Jameel, similar to Haji Jameel or Haji Saab, based on how many times you perform at Hajj. But due to the customs of people that they give it as a mean of respect, but it has no basis in the religion. Because basically only Allah knows whose Hajj was accepted and who's not. People would beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept from them the best of their deeds. Anyway, back to our subject, which is that some people come, they fly right on the 8th day. Either fly or drive, so they arrive on the 8th day. Some even arrive on the 9th day. Somehow, I don't know how they do it. They just go to Arafah. And after the day of Arafah, they go through Jamratul Aqabatil Kubra, and they leave right away to perform Tawaf al-Ifada, Sa'i, then they take off. And they appoint somebody else, one of their employees or one of the poor people. They pay them so that they can throw on their behalf the following days, which is the 11th and the 12th. This is a minimum requirement. I say to them that your Hajj is incomplete. You came to perform Hajj, not to take a tour. And when you appoint somebody else to throw on your behalf, you're not eligible to appoint simply because you have an appointment, or you're too busy, you have a flight to catch, you cannot stay anymore. You're only allowed to appoint and eligible to appoint somebody else or to make tawqeel for somebody else to throw on your behalf if you are incapable, if you're physically incapable to throw on behalf of yourself, and you still have to be in Mina during this time. You cannot just take off and say that, well, I am physically sick and I let somebody else throw on my behalf. May I leave now? No, you have to be there yourself. Accordingly, if that person left without throwing and he appointed somebody else, he fell in several violations. The first violation, which is leaving, spending the nights in Mina. And that requires a penalty or a fidya, to slaughter a sheep or a goat, to be slaughtered and distributed in Al-Haram, among the poor people. Second, there is a fidya for not throwing the stones, similar to the first fidya. Third, the person left without doing tawaf al-wada'. I understand that you might suggest that, but he just did tawaf al-ifada and left afterward. And we earlier said that if the person postponed tawaf al-ifada to be the last activity, even if it is followed by sa'i, then he leaves right away, that should be sufficient for him or her, and they don't owe another tawaf for al-wada' or the farewell tawaf, because the purpose of the farewell tawaf is to be the last thing you do, which is making tawaf around the house before leaving Mecca. I say, even if that person performed an independent tawaf al-wada', this tawaf is invalid because it was not done on the proper time. What is the proper time? After finishing the course. This person did not stay a single night in Mina, did not throw any stone on the 11th nor on the 12th day. The minimum requirement is to spend the night before the 11th and the night before the 12th. Then you are eligible to leave before sunset of the 12th day of the month of Dhul Hijjah. So he did not do any of that. So anything which was based on that is invalid as well. So there is a fidya for skipping al-biyat in Mina, or al-mabit in Mina. There is a fidya for skipping Ramy al-Jamarat. And there is a third fidya for not doing tawaf al-wada'. And the person is urged to make istighfar and tawbah and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive him, because he is belittling this act of worship and he's not behaving properly, as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Khudu anni manasikakum." If you're too busy, don't come this year. If you think that you will not be able to perform Hajj properly, then you don't have to show up, because you're taking the seat of somebody else.
Jazakallah. So his situation, would he have to come back to do the fidya? He'll have to return back to Saudi?
Concerning the fidya, now we may appoint others to do the fidya on your behalf. But there is a big difference between that I had to do that, I had to leave for a reason, then I give the fidya, and between just summoning all the wajibat and the mandatory practice and the rituals of Hajj and say, I'm rich enough, I don't care, let me give 5 sheep instead of 2. And some people do that as a matter of fact. They say that, I'm not sure I may have made any violations, so let me give 5, 10. So what, it's $500? No big deal. We say it doesn't go this way. This is a ibadah, and it goes with a prescription, and it goes in order. You've made a violation, it is known that this is a violation, you should have done it properly, or avoided the violation, there is a fidya. You give it, and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness, and you regret that you missed the wajib. You don't say, I don't care, and you just give the fidya because you're financially capable. So if you left, some people get very sick, and they have to fly them back. This is a valid reason. In this case, they may give the fidya, and they don't have to do it themselves. Somebody whom they may appoint would slaughter the fidya in Mecca and distribute it amongst the poor on their behalf.
Jazakallah. Now, we're going back to throwing again. We've got a question regarding the difficulty. Now, say somebody who's, it's the first time they're going to Hajj, it's a new experience. Like you said, there's over 3 million people there. They find the throwing something very difficult. So what they do is that they throw all at once. They throw all their 7 pebbles at one time. Now they want to know, is this allowed? And if this is not allowed, what do I have to do? What's the ransom I need to pay?
We've heard many of the suggestions which mainly are coming from the West. People who have some luxurious life and live at ease, when they come to the sacred places and they find it difficult to sleep on the sand in Al-Muzdalifah and live in tents in Mina and throw in the stones, some would come up with a suggestion, why don't we have a belt? And why don't we just have a BB gun and put all the pebbles at once and just semi-automatic and shoot at once? These suggestions are not valid when it comes to the ibadah. The ibadah, the purpose of the ibadah is obedience. The real meaning of the act of worship is equal to obedience and compliance. Allah wants to see you struggling to do what He wanted you to do. Of course, there is difficulty in doing what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ordered us. And accordingly, you get the reward in proportion with the hardship. But you do not do anything, so why don't you perform Hajj by watching the video at home, at your convenience, while eating popcorn? You have to come, and you have to exert some effort, and you have to show Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala your weakness, your humility. You have to shed tears, you have to cry, you have to share the poor people, their suffering as well. You have to renew your intention and so on. Throwing the stones all at once, considered as throwing one stone. So if you get 7 at once and cast them, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, that's 1. The remaining 6 stones, you have to come up with them.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, I think this is the last question on Ayyam that we had, was regarding throwing on the last day of Ayyam at-Tashriq. Now, you spoke about not throwing on the second day. Can somebody delay it to the last day?
Once again, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam allowed ar-ru'ah, the shepherd, those who are in charge for the herd, for the sheep, for the camels, because of their duties, because of their business. He allowed them to skip the first and the second day and to throw on the third day. For the first, for the second, and for the third day. But there is a legitimate reason. If you're not one of them, then you're not eligible to do so. And if you postpone it deliberately and you don't do it, then there's a fidya.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, we've got a question here from Sister Athar. She says, I'm living in Saudi Arabia. I asked a question before, but I just want some clarification. She says, if my husband's passed away, may Allah have mercy on him, his father, who was my mahram before, what's his position with me now? Is he still my mahram? Do we have any relationship? Because I have children and they want to see their grandfather. What sort of relationship do we have? What's allowed in Islam?
As we talked before in details about al-maharim, according to the verse of Surah An-Nisa and according to Sunnah Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we classify the mahram into a permanent mahram and a temporary mahram. The father-in-law is definitely a permanent mahram, by the meaning, whether you're still married to your husband or not, whether your husband is still alive or not. If you have nothing to do with your in-laws anymore, your father-in-law is permanently forbidden and prohibited for you to marry under any circumstances, because he is your father-in-law. And since he's not allowed to marry you, then he's your mahram, like your brother, like your father, like your son, like your uncle. But the temporary mahram, the brother-in-law. Now, once the brother who was the husband one day divorces his wife or dies, after the woman finishes her iddah, she becomes free. The brother-in-law may approach her in marriage and may marry her actually, because he was just a mahram, or she was prohibited for him because she was in the custody of his brother, but now she's free. So for the father-in-law is permanently mahram. So you can travel with him and he can escort you here and there because he's a mahram of yours.
Jazakallah ya Shaykh. Okay, we've got a question, going back to Hajj again. Somebody asked, shaving or trimming, which one is better? What should we do? Should we shave our heads or should we trim our heads? And then you've got another question afterwards regarding the whole etiquette of shaving and trimming.
People who have nice hair, of course, are very concerned about that, and they're reluctant to shave because going back to work and how would they appear before their colleagues. But it's so beautiful that one is giving up on his pride, on his hair, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when he was asked at work, what's going on? Is this a new fashion? No, because I was coming from Hajj. And I gave up my hair as one of the rites of Hajj for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam made a supplication and he said, may Allah have mercy on al-muhalliqeen. May Allah have mercy on those who shave. So the companion said, what about those who just trim, Ya Rasulullah? He said, once again, may Allah have mercy on those who shave. He repeated it thrice. And in the fourth time, when he was asked and reviewed, and he said, وَرَحِمَ اللَّهُ الْمُقَصِّرِينَ, and may Allah have mercy on those who just trim. We just have to keep in mind, whether shaving or trimming, that some people have the habit of, you see them, once they finish performing sa'i, and they end up at Al-Marwa in the 7th trip, they gather around a barrel. And somebody with scissors and taking a few hairs from here and there. That's not sufficient. At-tahallul, even by trimming, should cover all around the head, not from one portion and leaving the other, not from the sides and leaving the top, or from the back and leaving the front. It should cover everywhere, and it should be done professionally. So if the person covers the entire hair, either by shaving or trimming, he has fulfilled at-tahallul. There is another suggestion here, which is, if a person is performing Hajj al-Tamattu', and Hajj al-Tamattu' means that I'm going to perform Umrah during the months of Hajj. Then I'm going to do Tahallul and take off my Ihram, do Tahallul by either shaving or trimming, and wait until it is the 8th day of Dhul Hijjah and make a new intention for Hajj. Well, what if I did Umrah to Tamattu just 2 days ago? Which practice, which Tahallul will be recommended? Shaving or trimming? I would say trimming. Why? Because you need to leave some hair that you could shave upon Tahallul in 2 days from now, which is the 10th day upon coming back from Arafah, after Al-Ifadah from Arafah on the day of An-Nahr. So if Umrah to Tamattu was very near and the time would not allow your hair to regrow, then it will be better just to trim. But if there is a time span which is too long and you want to fulfill what's best, then shaving. And of course, upon at-tahallul from Hajj, shaving will be the best and the most ideal choice for men.
Jazakallah khair. So you can expand, what's the tahallul regarding the cutting of hair for the woman? How does she go about doing this?
Woman is completely different than a man in the ihram outfit and in at-tahallul. In at-tahallul, a woman would collect all the hair to one side, perhaps bring it to the front of her face, then would cut that much, just as long as a fingertip, by the scissors. And she's not allowed to shave even outside Hajj. She's not allowed to trim her hair very short to the point that she would look like a man, or have a hairstyle which would look like a man, because the Prophet ﷺ cursed those who amongst men would dress or copy women, and those amongst women who would dress or wear or copy men.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, we've got a question regarding this hair cutting again. Somebody says, what about if after the stoning, before I make the sacrifice, am I allowed to cut my hair then, or do I have to wait until I finish the sacrifice?
The right order is, as the Prophet ﷺ did, is number one, to throw Jamratul Aqabatil Kubra, 7 stones. Then to turn your Hajj and to slaughter your sacrifice. Then to shave or trim. But some people came to the Prophet ﷺ, different people, with various questions. Somebody said, oh, I shaved before I slaughter. He said, slaughter and there is no blame on you. I made tawaf before I slaughter and there is no blame on you. No one came to him with a different order, by the Prophet ﷺ said, do that and there is no blame on you. So if you do stoning, you're allowed to shave right away. So the sunnah is to follow the order. But of course, due to it's not that available, it's not that convenient for every person to do. In addition to that, nowadays, the vast majority do not necessarily slaughter by their own hands. They pay and they take vouchers from official organizations, or they appoint others, organizations, banks, etc., to slaughter on their behalf. So there is no way to verify which they have slaughtered on behalf of you or others yet or not. So it's not a problem. You throw the stones, then right away you shave or trim, and you're eligible now to go to dress up nicely, to wear your cologne, your atr, and perform tawaf and sa'i if you are making Hajj al-Tamattu or Hajj al-Ifrad.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, we've got a question regarding the farewell tawaf, and the question is, when I make my farewell tawaf after this period, am I allowed to do some basic shopping to get some essentials, or do I have to leave all of this?
I think once again that we have to understand the literal meaning of the word wada'. Wada' means farewell. If I am visiting some family at home and I say, okay, see you later, assalamu alaikum, it was nice to see you. When do I say that? Do I say that before they serve the dinner? Or after everything is done, I have my dinner, I have my dessert, I have my tea, and I'm fixing to leave. I'm just putting my shoes on. Similarly, a person who is performing Hajj, and in some opinions, Umrah too, Tawaf al-Wada' is mandatory in some opinions, that if I'm ready to leave and I pack my luggages, I'm just waiting for the bus to pick me up. In 2 hours, in 3 hours, then I go and I make Tawaf al-Wada'. So I should finish my shopping and everything before that. What if that for some reason, oh, I forgot, I just have to buy this, or the bus was late and I have to buy food? That's permissible. But I did not intend to do tawaf too early so that afterward, Tawaf al-Wada', so that afterward they would have plenty of time to shop around. This is a violation of Tawaf al-Wada', and it would require a repeat of Tawaf al-Wada' to be the last thing. But a quick and a brief purchases and so on is not actual shopping, is exempted.
Jazakallah. With that, we're going to take a short break, inshallah. We'll return in a couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Ark of Noah.
We're going to be mentioning the significance of the Ark of Noah.
Knowledge is the essence of everything. Once you get the knowledge, then it generates the desire and the motivation, and then it brings about the action.
And we're going to be discussing the state of the Ummah and the division which unfortunately has appeared in it, and the methodology of trying to arrive at the right path.
Your system of knowledge or your system of motivation are hit by any of these threats, you will definitely go astray and you will be suffering from a disease in the heart.
We're also going to be discussing what Allah wants from us.
How can we make that? Allah gave us the revelation. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing first and foremost the companions. If they believe in what you have believed in, then they are guided. So the real guidance is what the Prophet ﷺ and the companions were upon.
Join Shaykh Mutassim in the program Ark of Noah and discover the answers to these questions.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ask Huda. Just to remind you again, this episode is all on the emails. We're just checking all the emails, all the questions we've accumulated. So please do not telephone us today. We won't be able to entertain your questions. To remind you of our email address, it's ask@huda.tv. Okay, Shaykh. We're speaking about Tawaf al-Wada. We've got a question here. When we talk about Wada, the leaving, what do we mean by this? If somebody makes Tawaf al-Wada and leaves Makkah, goes to Jeddah, spends a couple of days and then returns, or does it mean, do they have to actually leave Saudi, leave altogether, go back to their home country? What do we mean by this Wada?
If the person is leaving back home, whether back home is Jeddah or At-Ta'if or even Al-Madinah, not necessarily outside the country. This is a departure which would require Tawaf al-Wada'. But for instance, a person is going back and forth to Mina. That does not require Tawaf al-Wada' as long as his luggages and his belongings are still in Mecca and he's going back and forth. Somebody have to make a quick trip to drop something and come back and so on. He's still within the rights of Hajj. But if the person is leaving, like you said that a person is going to visit some family members in Jeddah for 2 days, that person should make Tawaf al-Wada' and finish up the rights of Hajj. Then perhaps upon coming once again, it would be recommended to make ihram with the intention of performing Umrah once again upon entering Mecca.
Jazakallah. Now sticking with this Tawaf al-Wada', what we see, some people, they walk backwards, okay? So what's the wisdom behind walking backwards after finish this Tawaf al-Wada'?
Actually, this is one of the misconceptions and of the very common mistakes, one of the innovations in the practice of Tawaf al-Wada'. It has no basis. You go back, you try to trace it, it has no foundation. It's basically the whispers of Satan. Some people think that since this is the farewell Tawaf, you should not give your back to the Kaaba. As it is in the mind of some people that if you're sitting, you should not stretch out your legs towards the Qibla.
Yes,
you know, when we say you should not do that, that requires a reference. Says who? Did Allah say so? Did the Prophet ﷺ say so? When you tell me, don't eat this, why shouldn't I eat it? Because it's haram. Where exactly did you find that? So when people live backwards, this is an act of innovation. And the Prophet ﷺ said, وَكُلُّ بِدَعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ that leads astray. You think that it's a good thing that the last thing you see upon exiting from the haram is the Kaaba, and you step in on people while you're walking backwards, and you're inviting others to make an innovation misleading them because you think that you know while you don't know anything. So if you do Tawaf al-Wada', just simple Tawaf like any other Tawaf, If there is a salah, you pray and you step out. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You say the supplication of exiting the masjid. Bismillah, wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah. Allahumma ghfir li dhunubi wa aftah li abwaba fadlik. In the name of Allah, and with the peace and salutation upon the Messenger of Allah. Oh Allah, forgive me my sins and open for me the doors of your bounties. That's it. No backwards, no giving cheers and farewell to the Kaaba, hoping that you would come back. Some people would do certain practices, wiping on certain parts, hoping that they would come back. You would only come back if Allah invites you. If it is in your destiny, if it has been decreed for you. All those false practices will not guarantee anything with your departure. As a matter of fact, you may not step outside the masjid. So follow and do not innovate. This is what the Prophet ﷺ has said. And he too said, خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, I want to know from this question, next question is, what's the earliest and the latest time of doing Tawaf al-Wada? When can somebody perform it the earliest, and when can they, say, even delay it sometimes?
You see, for ordinary people who happen to be chemists, physicians, university professors, but not scholars, we don't like to get them stuck between different opinions. And you have to do it here and there. The simple thing would choose what's confirmed, the opinion of the vast majority of the scholars. We said now it depends. For the weak ones, for women, for youngsters who left from Al-Muzdalifah past midnight, they went to Mina and they threw the stones, Jamratul Aqabat al-Kubra. Are they now eligible to perform Tawaf al-Ifadah? Why not? They go and perform Tawaf al-Ifadah. And I'm saying that we're giving you the brief, the summary of all the opinions. It doesn't mean that this is the only opinion, but this is a valid opinion, and a very, very valid opinion. It has references, strong references. So you throw the stones and you go to perform Tawaf al-Ifadah. But now, for those who are physically fit and did not have any reason, such as people to accompany them, they were not in a charge for slaughter and the sacrifice, they must wait until sunrise. Throw the stones of Jamratul Aqabat al-Kubra past sunrise. Then after that they may go and perform Tawaf al-Ifadah as early as they finish from throwing the stones. They may begin by shaving or trimming, then they follow up by a Tawaf, or vice versa, and it is better to shave or trim and change into your regular clothes and wear your nice clothes, take a nice shower after 2 days in the plain, in Arafah and Muzdalifah, sleeping in the streets, take a nice shower and perform a Tawaf. That begins in the Eid day, and it's extended not only to the end of Ayyam al-Tashriq. Some people panic, and they think that I have to go. Some people are being misinformed. They think that, and I've seen that personally, they think that you have to perform Tawaf al-Ifadah on the Eid day. Not only that, and you have to come back to Mina before sunset. And if you don't, then that's a violation which requires a dam. You keep hearing the word dam everywhere. Dam, 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 blood. What does it mean? It's like a sword being placed on your neck. If you don't go back before sunset, you have to offer a dam. It's all baseless, misinformation. So what is the right thing? Number one, concerning Arafah, concerning Tawaf al-Ifadah. I may do it on the 10th day, the Eid day, 11th, 12th, 13th, or even it's extended all the way to the end of the month of Dhul Hijjah. And some scholars said it's extended lifetime. As long as you did not do it, you may do it anytime. But you would remain in a state of ihram, yet you did the at-tahallul al-awwal, but you cannot embrace your wife sexually until you perform at-tawaf, Tawaf al-Ifadah. So accordingly, the earlier is the best. So if you get to do it on the 10th, that's perfectly fine. 11th, 12th, some people decide, I don't have to go to Mecca and suffer the rush in the crowd of coming back and the difficulty, and I may not be able to make it before midnight or sunset. So why don't I wait until I return to Mecca after completing the course of the 3 days of Mina? That's fine as well. But we said that at-Tawaf is one of the main pillars of Hajj. So the earlier is the best to perform it if it is accessible. The second thing I said that among the misconceptions, that they want to do the Tawaf, so they come past midnight, past sunrise. They do al-Jamarat, they shave and trim, they exchange into their regular clothes. They want to go perform Tawaf and come back before sunset. and there is an extreme difficulty and hardship in that. What if they don't make it before sunset? No problem, because what you're supposed to do, the mandatory part, is spend most of the night in Mina. You are on your way, you are in the vehicle, and you couldn't make it because of the crowd. There is no blame on you, nor penalty.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, now we've got a question about the fidya now. Somebody says, how many fidya do I actually pay? Depends, he says, on his violations. For example, didn't stay the night in Mina, for example, didn't stone on the second day. So this fidya, is it one, or does he have to give multiple?
He's trying to catch several birds with one stone. It doesn't work with the fidya, because a fidya is a ransom for a violation. If the person skipped the miqat or passed the miqat without making the talbiyah and the intention of ihram, he missed a wajib, and that requires a fidya. If he did not spend the night in Muzdalifah, he missed the wajib, and that requires a fidya. If he did not throw the stones, that's a wajib that's been missed and requires a fidya. If he did not perform tawaf al-wada', this is a wajib which he did not make and requires a fidya. If he did not spend the night in Mina, or most of the night, it requires fidya. So any wajib you missed requires an independent fidya. And if you took your family members along with you and they missed that, each person is required to give the fidya. And the fidya cannot be summoned. I mean, all the violations, and you just give one fidya. Per each violation, an independent fidya. And that would take me to, once again, I would like to stress on this. Normally, after Hajj, on the 12th day, we would receive so many questions. People panic, as usual, and say, Shaykh, may I give 2 or 3 fidyas? I say, for what? What kind of violation did you make? At least to know that whether you're required to give a fidya or not. He or she would say, I do not recall any violation. Alhamdulillah, we went with you step by step through everything. We've done everything, even the sunnah. But just in case, I may have done anything. I may. This is a waste, because there is nothing called that you throw it in the sea and you say, it is for fi sabilillah. It has to have a reason. That reason which you give is invalid reason. I would rather say this is a charity. This is a udhiyah. This is for the poor. Now the reward is guaranteed. But to say that just in case, it doesn't fit anywhere in the dictionary of the sacrifice, the fidya, al-udhiyah, al-sadaqah. It's not any of that.
Okay, now say you've just explained that somebody could have 5 fidya. They may have to, for all the violations they've done, and including their family, it could be multiple. So what does somebody do who, if they can't afford to pay for these fidya? What do they do?
Of course, number one, they would avoid making the violation. And number two, that if the person cannot afford the fidya, is going to be treated similar to a person who is performing Hajj al-Qiran or Hajj al-Tamattu and cannot afford the Hajj. They gotta perform fasting 10 days. فصيام 3 أيام في الحج و7 إذا رجعتم تلك 10 كاملة. Fast for 10 days, 3 while performing Hajj, even during Ayyam al-Tashriq, and 10 days and 7 days upon going home, so the total is 10 days per each violation.
Per each violation?
Yes.
Okay, so now we go into the next question, and we've got a multiple kind of question here. When do I give the fidya? Can I give it myself? The questioner says, can I return home and give the fidya? I live in a poor country, there's a lot of poor people. What if I give cash instead? So this question, mashallah, has got a couple within there.
Al-fidya must be offered in Mecca. And its meat must be distributed amongst the poor people of Mecca. And the fidya should meet the same requirements of al-udhiyah. Either a sheep or a goat, a certain age, healthy, or 1/7 of a cow, or 1/7 of a camel, or a she-camel. And the person must distribute it all in Mecca amongst the poor people. And he may not taste it, or even eat or drink or eat anything from its soup, because this is a ransom, it's not a hajj. So number one, once the violation has been done, the person is required to offer the fidya, whether he does it immediately or later. And the earlier is the best in every regard. So the person missed the miqat and did not make al-ihram from the appointed miqat. He passed the miqat and he made the ihram from Jeddah airport. We say, once you arrive to Mecca, offer the fidya. You may buy the voucher from the official organization and specify this is a fidya. You're done with it. If he postpones it to slaughter it along with the Hajj, that's perfectly fine as well, but you have to specify this is a fidya. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى. Deeds are bought by their intentions, and every person would be rewarded or recompensed according to their intention.
Okay, so now the other part of this is, does he have to distribute it himself? And the distribution of this, nowadays it's taken care of. Is this okay for him?
He does not have to do it himself. It will be sufficient to appoint, as I just said, that even if you pay to any official, trustworthy organization or trustworthy person, that would be sufficient. But what's not sufficient, what's not accepted, is to either give just the cash, distribute the cash amongst the poor. That's not sufficient. It won't suffice you. You have to pay for those who are going to slaughter, or slaughter yourself. You slaughter by yourself. It will not be sufficient, and it will not be valid to send it back home, even if back home are more in need, because al-fidya is related to al-haram, so it has to be slaughtered and distributed in al-haram.
Okay, now the next question is somebody who negates all this. Says, what if the person doesn't give fidya at all? What state is their Hajj in if they totally don't give it? And this is maybe due to ignorance or maybe due to on purpose.
He's jeopardizing the entire Hajj. The Hajj is insufficient, is incomplete. It will not be accepted at that point because it's incomplete.
Okay, so the person who does this is in a bad state. What makes a person forget, or say, for example, deliberately not do this? Is this another case of somebody not learning about the manasik?
I doubt that a person who spent that much money and that much effort and that much time, that he is willing to take the risk of just avoiding all the beautiful work of tawaf, of sa'i, of standing in Arafah, just simply because if he doesn't know, that's a different issue. But if he knows, I doubt that any person who knows that he must give fidya, and if he cannot afford the fidya, then he must fast, and he would ignore that. And if he does that deliberately, then he will be recompensed accordingly.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, I've got a question. What do we do first, the hadi or the fidya? Which one do we do? We take out or carry out first?
That's irrelevant. I mean, al-Hajj is known that it's fi yawm al-nahr, or the following days. But al-fidya may be done as early as the violation has been done. So sometimes the violation has been done much earlier than the Hajj. Fine. And as I said, that may I just postpone everything at once? That's perfectly fine. But the Hajj may not be offered before its proper time.
Okay, Jazakallah khair for this. Okay, now we've got a question about changing of intention. Somebody goes to Hajj, and they've heard your good advice about somebody who carries out a second or third Hajj. It may be worthwhile, it's very recommended to do it for their parents. He decides while doing his Hajj to change his intention. Can he change his intention for the sake of his parents, this Hajj?
Well, if he's already involved in the rites of Hajj, this is similar to a person who is praying right now, Asr. He's praying, he intended, said Allahu Akbar, and he's praying Asr. Then he remembered, oh, I didn't pray Dhuhr. So can I switch the intention within the prayer itself? No. Similarly, if the person assumed the intention of Ihram to commence in the act of Hajj or Umrah on behalf of himself or others, he cannot switch the intention once he's already in a state of Ihram. But if he did not assume the intention of Ihram yet, he just intended in his mind that he's planning to do, even while in the plane. But before approaching the miqat, he decided to change the intention. That's valid. So he commences in the act of ihram with whatever intention, he goes with it all the way. Even if he changes it, it's invalid, and he remains in the earlier intention, which is the first one he made the talbiyah with. And that's why we recommend for a person who's making ihram or hajj or umrah on behalf of others to say labbaika on behalf of such and such. Labbaika an abi, labbaika hajjan an ummi, labbaika umratan an abi, etc.
Jazakallah. Okay, now we've got a person who wants to do tamattu, hajj tamattu, and so he does his umrah, but after this he has an emergency. He has to leave straight away, what consequences, say he leaves for his own country, what are the consequences of his state? What does he have to do now?
This question is similar to the earlier one, by the meaning, if the person performed Umrah Tamattu, then before commencing in the practices of Hajj, for the 8th, he did not make the intention, then he had to leave. He's done Umrah, and there is no blame on him, there is no consequences, there is no ransom, because he did not begin the actual rites of Hajj. But if he begins the actual rites of Hajj, at that there will be some consequences. Number one, we would say that if the person was aware of the fact that he might have to leave due to sickness or an emergency, so he said that وَمَحِلِّ حَيْثُ حَبَسْتَنِي, and we recommend it for sick people or those who are expecting emergencies to say at the time of assuming the intention of ihram, لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك ومحلي حيث حبستني, meaning that I'm free from any commitment wheresoever you would hold me. If I get sick, if I have an emergency, then I don't owe you anything. At that, the person would just withdraw, would take off the ihram clothes. There is no hajj, there is no fidya, there is no commitment, and he would just leave whenever the emergency arises. But if the person did not put the condition, then they have an emergency, they should give the Hajj. And that Hajj which they've started, they require to resume it once again.
Jazakallah Shaykh. Okay, we return to a question about tawaf. Now this is something we see all the time, so it really does need clarification. Somebody's making tawaf and they have a book with them, and they know for each round of tawaf they have a specific dua to make. Is this from the sunnah? Are there any specific dua for the rounds of tawaf and the rounds of sa'i?
You know, this is very interesting. If there was specific supplication for each round, whether in tawaf or in sa'i, number one, all the companions of the Prophet ﷺ would have known it. Second, the Prophet ﷺ would have informed us. Third, it would be known to everyone, like we, while making ruku' and the salah, we all say, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. We don't hear somebody saying that, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, or Subhana Rabbi al-A'la. Rather, we say Subhana Rabbi al-Azim in ruku' and Subhana Rabbi al-A'la in sujood. Why? It is very well known, this supplication is specified to be recited in this time. But now, if you read in those booklets, which I call them sometimes yellow pages, you find too many different supplications, because they were phrased by people like us, maybe by righteous people, by scholars. But I'm not abiding by any of them, because the Prophet ﷺ did not specify a specific supplication in each round. Let everyone chant whatever supplication they want to. Some of the Bedouins, the Prophet ﷺ asked him, what do you say? He said, Ya Rasulullah, لا أحسن دندنتك ولا دندنة معاذ. I don't know how to make it beautifully like you and Mu'adh. I only say, oh Allah, take me to heaven and protect me from fire. He said, this is what we all chant and make supplications about the same thing. So while making tawaf, any supplication, any dhikr, the only memorized supplication that the Prophet ﷺ used to recite frequently is between the two rukn, al-rukn al-yamani wal-hajar al-aswad, ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار.
Jazakallah. What a beautiful answer, because it just shows you how simple, mashallah, our deen is. With that, we have to leave you, run out of time. So until next time, I'll leave you with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.
وسعيا مشكورا لبيك الله حجا مبرورا وذنبا مغفورا وسعيا مشكورا لبيك الله حجا مبرورا وذنبا مغفورا.
The first rule is the letter
Ha. Ha.
This letter may be considered as a heavy H, and to pronounce
Ha.
correctly, you have to. The H sound is emitted from the middle part of the throat